this time we'll be going over to our Abuja studio where Dr. Kabiru Mato will be joining us. He's a political scientist. Thank you for joining us this morning from Abuja. But speaking about the revenue allocation formula, which the Niger State governor has talked about, but we have heard people who say this is purely political, which, as a matter of fact, negates the principle of derivation which had been from time.
Thank you very much. My question of
allocation, I can say the politics of revenue allocation in Nigeria is particularly not a new development. It's been there right after independence, and I think we are going to continue to grapple with it for some time to come. Depending on the circumstances that every particular section of this country finds itself in, at any material time, the agitation for whatever formula that is to be adopted will continue to rage. So I am not surprised that at the moment, because oil is the major source of revenue accruing to the Nigerian government, those who produce, or those from whose area oil is produced, will continue to insist on making derivation as the most central principle that revenue sharing should be based in Nigeria. I think it's not a new, like I said, a phenomenon, like I said.
Which camera?
It was experienced during the First Republic when agriculture was a mainstay of the nation's economy. The north and other sections of the country that produced agricultural produce also argued in favor of derivation. But there are other very critical and important issues also that need to be always taken into consideration if a people are federating, as is the case with Nigeria. The issue of population, the issue of size, the issue of needs, and so on and so forth are also very central and critical, and they must not be left for the single item of derivation as is being canvassed for now by especially the oil producing states.
Yeah, but would you subscribe to the because we have heard people say, well, even if you are to bring up certain matters, timing is of great importance, and bringing it up at this time while we've got this current security challenge, it's all by itself a little not exactly in place.
I don't think if I'm hearing you very clearly, Chamberlain. What was your question?
The fact that this matter was brought up now, because we have heard people who say that this alone might just instigate some more trouble from certain region, that it shouldn't have been brought up at this time while we have the security challenge on our hands. Does it matter?
Well, I think it really doesn't matter. One of the major reasons behind the security challenges that Nigeria is facing today perhaps is the level of education and endemic poverty that Nigerians are subjected to. I would like to disagree with the opinion that poverty is an entirely northern phenomenon. I say poverty is a national phenomenon, but the degree and intensity of poverty in Nigeria varies from one section of the country to the other. Just like the question of education and literacy, Nigeria is predominantly an illiterate society if you put it within the global perspective. But if you try to compare one section of Nigeria with the other, you realize that yes, truly, some sections are apparently more educated than other sections. So I think the bulk of the security challenges that Nigeria is facing today are attributable to the very poor management of the resources that we have, and put another way, the manner in which certain section of the country receive quite a huge amount of money. For instance, the recent statistics that we read all over the place, where the 6 South oil producing states in the last 10 years received about more than 3.7 trillion naira, and then with a population that is perhaps not up to 1/3 of the population of the 19 northern states who have collected a little over $3 trillion in the last 10 years, in my view does not speak well of a nation that aspires to practice true federalism. Because my understanding of fiscal federalism has to do with the manner in which the resources that is accruable to the nation is shared on the basis of certain agreed principles, not totally taking control of whatever comes in simply because oil is produced in a particular section of the country. If we continue to have that, the implications really is that the vast majority of states in Nigeria will not be able to meet up with the basic challenges of not only providing infrastructure but also in ensuring that education, power, road transportation and other things are far below what you see in other parts of the country. And in that kind of scenario, therefore, it encourages a lot of hostility and thereby threatening the peace and stability of the nation, as it were.
Perhaps you expatiate more for us when what you mean by principle, sharing principle, and also some say that we shouldn't be talking about this now. We should as well dwell on the proper management of the resources, how little they are by the political class in the north.
Well, that's not a very fair statement. That statement, in my view, will always come from people who are taking the largest chunk or the larger chunk as against the majority of Nigeria that is taking very little. Let me give you a good example. The allocation that we are reading in the papers this morning is that Bayelsa State, that is perhaps the least populated state in the country, is going home with over 9 billion naira. And Kano, that is the most populous state in Nigeria, is not taking up to 9 billion naira. So if we try to put this amount of money in the perspective of, the services that it's supposed to render to the generality of the population, assuming that the management of these resources is done fairly and justifiably, then you can see that there will be a lot of gaps, which means that the nursery schools that will exist in states like Bayelsa, in Akwa Ibom State, in River State, will be perhaps more equipped and more sophisticated than the universities that you will have in perhaps Ogun State, in Kano State, Kaduna State, or Katsina State, that is the fifth largest state as far as population is concerned in this country. So I don't think, I wish to differ very seriously with the position raised by Tony Uranta that he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I think that's really a very selfish, if I will call it, and of course over exaggeration of the reality of the Nigerian situation today. If we have to practice democracy as Nigerians keep arguing, then of course democracy is not only restricted to fairness in the manner in which we conduct our electoral processes. Democracy also has to do with the distribution of the resources of a particular society. So I'm thinking that it is not, yes, the management of resources, no matter how little every section of the country gets, is fundamental, but beyond that, the huge gap that exists between the various sections of the country, in my view, is also a recipe for insecurity, is also a source of all the major conflicts, because a lot of children, therefore, that are supposed to be going to school in several sections of the country cannot go to school because the infrastructure is therefore is either absent or severely lacking in this area. So I really believe that we need to have a rethink on this matter and perhaps put things in the correct perspective, so that if the Nigerian Federation will endure, at least like the young man who spoke in the beginning said, as far as development in the federal system is concerned, it is not a priority of saying I'm from the south and I don't give a hoot about what happens in the north. Of course, yes, we are also aware of the debate that has been lingering since the First Republic, when southern leaders
I'm afraid I have to butt in here. You used there were two instances that Mr. Aranta raised. He talked about, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I mean, now to what extent the South has been dictating the tune is arguable. But he also used another instance. He says the goose who lays the golden egg should be fed fat. Do you agree with that particular principle?
Well, you see. Let me start with his theory of he who pays the piper, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. Yeah, to some extent that it's right. But in this case, that Nigeria operates a federal system of government, and the call for what I said as fiscal federalism really means that a more dispassionate and acceptable method of sharing of national revenues and resources must be agreeable to every section of the country and shouldn't be a priority of those areas where such resources are derived from. So it is not a matter of saying he who pays the piper dictates the tune, and in this case, therefore, if the whole oil is produced in the South-South region, so 90 or as he's saying 50% of the resources that is accruable from oil should be paid
Dr. Mato,
the South-South region. I think that's
you're not exactly tackled that particular question. I mean, I just asked. I left aside he who pays the piper dictates the tune. I said that is arguable. But he who, the goose that lays the golden egg, do you agree that it should be fed fat?
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with, perhaps, of course, the Constitution of the Federal Republic Nigeria has made it succinctly clear that derivation, it's 13% of whatever resources, a minimum of 13% of whatever resources that is derived from a particular area should be paid back to it as, derivation. So this really, it is, and perhaps I think that's the reason why a lot of other, but apart from the 13% derivation, remember there are other, channels, or there are other areas that a lot of these resources that are accruable from oil are also channeled to the South-South region. You talk about the NDC and NDDC, you talk about the intervention, the amnesty program, and that's even outside the official, outside the main lines that we know of. Not to talk about what happens with the oil companies. So it is not a case of feeding the golden eggs that leaves. That is being done, but I am also of the view that it is partly responsible for the growing national tension that we continue to have in this country, even if the governors and other sections of the country are sufficiently mismanaging the little resources that they get. Let me give you an example. If Kaduna State, where I come from, takes 3-4 billion naira at the end of every federation account meeting, and Kaduna State, for God's sake, is the third most populous state in the federation. I also share one particular sentiment with Tony Uranta. It's not all about disagreement. I agree with him. The leadership in this country has been very, very uninitiative and lacking in imagination, and that perhaps explains why every state of the federation, including those who produce oil, including those in whose backyard oil is produced, that at the end of every month will congregate in one state capital or the other in the name of sharing the resources, going back home without putting their thinking caps to be able to see other areas that they could raise revenues together. And that's why I keep saying that even though Lagos finds itself in the most advantaged position as far as Nigeria is concerned by the fact that more industries are concentrated there, the seaports, the airports, as well as several other things, so it is able to earn a lot of money, it's able to generate a lot of resources from other sources, than the federation account. But that also, in my view, was a product of the controversy that existed between the former President Obasanjo and the former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu as a result of the local government, debacle, which really made Lagos to look inward. And I think this is also a very critical issue that every state outside, including perhaps those in the oil producing areas, must begin to look inward in-depthly with a view to perhaps raising the revenue profile of their own respective areas so as to be able to augment what's happening. And what happens if tomorrow, for God's sake, that the price of oil drops to $65 per barrel? It will even be possible for Nigerian government to pay salaries. Not to talk about what other states government that are entirely dependent
this
on
is
oil
You're a political scientist. The North has led this country, or ruled the country, if you will, for longer than any region in this country. And so this formula, they're privy to this formula. So on what basis would they be coming up now to question the same formula that had existed way before now? And also the fact that we have comments being credited to Dr. Junai Mohammed saying, quote, North ready for Nigeria's breakup, Should these kinds of comments be made at this time? Some say, is it because you're not in position of authority now at number one?
Chamberlain, I didn't hear what you said, Junaidu Mohammed said.
There are quotes, comments credited to him saying, North ready for Nigeria's breakup, Dr. Junaid Mohammed. And people ask, should these kinds of comments be made at this time?
Well, Junaidu Mohammed is one individual who is entitled to his opinion, and I want to believe that Junaidu probably did react in response to what people like Tony Oranta have been, saying about Nigeria. And let me make this fact very clearly, Chamberlain. There is this belief across the broad spectrum of the Nigerian society that the North, is foot dragging in the event that Nigeria wishes to disintegrate. I would like to say, in my capacity as a Nigerian of northern extraction and an average, of course, a northern voice, that statement is rather very faulty. I first of all think that one major problem that we face as a people is that the challenges of leadership that seem to be seriously lacking is greatly responsible for all the calamities and the problems that we are seeing today. And of course, the agitationists that are calling for the separation of this country, you need to have it. Probably Junaidu came up, excuse me, to raise this issue in response to a lot of such insinuations that we hear all over the place that the North does not want Nigeria to break. Okay. I don't want Nigeria to break, certainly. But if Nigeria will have to break, I will have no option than to, begin to think of the next step that I will take in the event that Nigeria breaks.
All right, and I know that is not what the country thinks of at this point in time, because a lot of people have also underscored that point. But could you comment on the first matter, which is the fact that the North has ruled this country for a longer period of time than anybody else? So on what basis, people ask, would they be questioning this formula? Because you created more states, much more than other regions, and so all of those still exist today. And so why would you be questioning that principle of derivation which you had benefited from previously?
Please, Chamberlain, can you take it? The system here does not seem to be working very well.
Okay, well, the comment is that the principle of derivation, if it's being questioned, if that's what the Niger State governor meant, we've had people who have said they benefited from this system way before now. Why would they question it now? And besides, they've led this country for a longer time. They're privy to this formula. Why question it now?
Oh, yes, agreeably that the Nigerians of northern extraction have been in charge of the affairs of this country a longer period than what in any other section of the country. And the revenue sharing formula probably was or the constitution that has provided for this particular, sharing formula was crafted under the supervision of Nigerians of northern extraction. I don't have any doubt about that. That's right. But probably what the governor of Niger State is saying is that the realities that are facing the nation straight on the face today dictates or require that these revenue sharing formulas need to be reassessed, readdressed if the other parts of the country would be part of this alliance and would be able to sustain and provide infrastructure in the same breath and in the same dimension with those that are getting large chunk within the national resources that are accruable to the nation. Okay. If that's the point of view that Niger State governor is talking about, I obviously did not see or do not see any reason, anything wrong with that. And of course, yes, the North has been in charge for quite a while, but of course also that in the last 12 years or so, the North has been a backbencher as far, but wherever the rulers of Nigeria, or the leaders of Nigeria are coming from, I think the most important thing to do is that, you see, these laws are not cast on stone, and to the extent that when you do them, you are unable to revisit them, to fine-tune them, to operate on the basis of the objective realities on ground. Okay. You attest to the fact that in Nigeria today we have tremendous security challenges. It is also a fact that there is endemic level of poverty in the 19 northern states of this country. Let me tell you that a recent statistics released indicated that about 6 million children are being given birth to annually in Nigeria, and out of these 6 million children, 4 million children are from the 19 northern states and the Federal Capital Territory. And then the infrastructure that is supposed to take care and shape the lives of these young people are virtually broken down in the northern part of this country.